Hello, this is Daniel. Listen down to the wire. Let's get right into it. And let's start with the Grizzlies and what they need to do to get into the NBA playoffs. And first of all, they just need to win tomorrow against the Milwaukee Bucks. And there's some light at the end of the tunnel because they have a couple of players who are doubtful and aren't playing. Ersan Ilyasova is day to day, so they don't know if he's playing yet. Chris Middleton is day to day also, so he could be out, but he might play too. Wesley Matthews, a starting shooting guard, is out for the game, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, one of the best NBA players, if not the best, he's probably going to get MVP, is suspended. So that's huge for the Grizzlies, and hopefully something can finally go to the Grizzlies for success because right now they've only had one win in 7 games, so that's just not acceptable. And the Grizzlies really need to get a win if they're going to make it the play-in game. And hopefully they can make the playoffs, but right now they just need to win a game because if they lose against Milwaukee, it's basically over unless the Suns and the Spurs both lose. And now let's talk about the race for the 8th seed in the Western Conference for the NBA playoffs to get in that play-in game on Saturday and maybe Sunday. For the 8th seed is the Portland Trailblazers. They're a half game ahead of the Memphis Grizzlies, the Phoenix Suns, and the San Antonio Spurs. The Grizzlies are a half game back from the Blazers. The Suns are a half game back from the Blazers too. And the Spurs are a half game back also. So it's really tight. The Grizzlies are the 9th seed just by a little bit because they have a better winning percentage than the Suns and the Spurs. But if the Grizzlies lose, then it could be over unless the Spurs and the Suns lose also. But as of right now, I think the Grizzlies really need to get that win against Milwaukee. And the Trailblazers, on Thursday, they play the Nets. And then the Grizzlies, they play the Bucks without Giannis, so that might help them. And then the Suns, they play the Mavericks, which is a challenging team with Porzingis and Luka Doncic. And then the Spurs, they play the Jazz. So, the Suns and the Spurs both have some challenging matchups. I think Rudy Gobert is not going to play. That might help the Spurs. But the Grizzlies really need to get that win if they want to possibly get the 8th seed or stay in the 9th seed to secure a play-in game. And the Portland Trailblazers play the Nets. The Nets haven't been good, but they have shown some flashes like beating the Bucks. But the Nets just need to play really hard if they're going to beat the Blazers because the Blazers have been really hot as of late. And this is going to go down to the wire, just like my show, Down to the Wire. And it's going to be really fun to see what happens and who gets the 8th spot in the NBA playoffs. There's some news out of the college football scene yesterday. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 canceled their season, but you still have the ACC, the Big 12, and the SEC still going full force, and they're going to have a football season. So some heartbreaking news for the Big 10 and the Pac-12, but the 3 teams in the Power 5 that are still playing, that's also good news because you still have some football to watch. So it's a win-lose situation, and too bad that those teams had to cancel, but there's still teams that are going to play this year, so that's good. Next, I'm going to go to my Heisman favorites for the upcoming college football season. Starting at number 1, I have Trevor Lawrence as one of the favorites. Then I have Jamar Chase, very talented wide receiver from the University of LSU. And then I have Travis Etienne, a running back from Clemson, might be the top back in all of college football. Then I have Derek King from the University of Miami, transferring from Houston. I think he'll be a huge compliment to Miami after he threw for over 3,000 yards and rushed for over 600. So I think that'll be a big compliment. And then you have Chuba Hubbard, also a top 2 back in all of college football out of Oklahoma State. So just a lot of talent in my top 5, and I think those people, any of those top 5 will win the Heisman next year. Let's go to the phones again. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Hey, Daniel, it's Sam again. I just had a few questions. So now that the Big Ten and Pac-12, I think, both canceled their fall seasons, what would you like to see from college football this year?
Well, I'd like to see the other 3 Power 5 conferences go forward with the season. I think they can get it done. If they have to limit fans, I guess, but I prefer if they had all fans. But I think that they're going to have a season, and I think the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 should push forward for a season, and that's what it looks like they're going to do right now.
And then I was thinking you'd say that. And then the question arises: is this season a legitimate season without powerhouses such as Oklahoma, Ohio State, Michigan in the college football scene?
I think it is because you still have a lot of powerhouse names like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, a lot of other teams also in that mix too. But also you have to think about if the teams that are playing are not afraid of they're not afraid of the coronavirus. So I mean, the other people were being wimps because they didn't want to play this season. I mean, I know there's a coronavirus, but I mean, I think it will be legitimate because there's still a championship to go and win championship for.
And then one more thing called football. The Big Ten and Pac-12 were discussing something about a spring season. If they could do that, would that be? Do you think that would involve every team and they would all try to move on to that, or you think it would just be a regular season with only in-conference games?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Sam. But because I think the SEC, Big 12, and ACC are gonna have their season in the fall, and maybe the Pac-12 and Big 10 push their season to the spring, and maybe they have a regular season, and then they have the winner of those two conferences playing in a little championship. But I think those two are going to be the only ones from the Power 5 that move to the spring.
Gotcha. And now on to basketball, if you've got time for it. I've got a few questions there. The race for the 8 seed, the Grizzlies seem to be really struggling. Do you think the Suns, can pull it out, or no?
I mean, maybe if the Grizzlies lose tomorrow, I think that the Suns will be the 9th seed if they win their game against the Mavericks. But the Grizzlies are playing the Bucks, but Giannis is not playing tomorrow because he's suspended for one game. So the Grizzlies will catch a break there for the first time in the bubble after losing so many players, and everybody plays their players against the Grizzlies without resting them. So I think, as of right now, I think if the Grizzlies do what they're supposed to do, I think they'll be at the 8th or 9th seed. But if they lose, I think it'll be the Suns' spot with the 8th or 9th.
Gotcha. And honestly, though, do you think it matters with the way Damian Lillard is playing? Do you think play-in really matters?
I think it does, because if the Grizzlies beat the 8th seed or like the Suns are hotter than the Blazers are right now. I mean, the Blazers have lost some games in the bubble, and the Suns just haven't. But the Grizzlies, they beat the Blazers earlier in the season before the whole coronavirus shutdown happened. So, I mean, if they have to play 2 games, you never know. If the Grizzlies only have to beat them once and the Blazers have to beat them twice, so if the Blazers have an off game and the Grizzlies catch them, I mean, I think the Grizzlies could get it done and be the 8th seed.
Okay, well, that's all I got for tonight, Daniel. Thank you.
Thank you for your call.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Let's go back to the phones again. Hello, you're down to the wire.
Daniel, Elridge Devin Withersfield III, East Memphis.
Hello, Elridge.
How are you doing tonight, Daniel?
Great, how are you doing?
I'm a little depressed, Daniel. I'm a little depressed on the Grizzlies. Tell me how we can possibly get into the playoffs.
Well, I think there's a chance the Grizzlies could. First, they have to win tomorrow, and they're getting a little help because Giannis Antetokounmpo isn't playing tomorrow because of suspension, and there's many other players who are doubtful due to injury or rest. So I think the Grizzlies can maybe catch a break and get into a playing game for possibly getting the 8th spot.
I've also read, Daniel, that if we could get the 9th spot, if we lose, the Suns lose, and the Spurs all lose. Is that the information you have as well?
Yes. Because
my question to you, Daniel, is should we? Or should we just go ahead and take it?
I think we should, just to possibly get some playoff experience since we're such a young team. Obviously, there's another side to it, is if we don't make the playoffs, maybe we're in the lottery and we get a high seed. So I think there's multiple things, possibilities on the table at the Grizzlies. There's many options, but I think they should try to make the playoffs as the number one priority.
Yeah, I don't think we have a chance in the playoffs with Jaren. DB is gone off the charts. Nobody's controlling him. And the only thing that can happen is Ja Morant gets hurt during the playoffs. I think we should tank, sit our players, fire the head coach, and look to the future, Daniel.
Yes, I think that we should try to make the playoffs. I know there's possibilities that Ja could maybe get hurt, but I think that I don't know if Taylor Jenkins is the right man for the job. I mean, at first they were saying maybe he could coach of the year, but this is unacceptable, losing 6 out of the first 7 games. That's just unacceptable. And how can you be even possibly coach of the year if you're 33-39 with a losing record? And he just not done well with the Grizzlies, and especially with building depth. I know people have gone down, but you need to have backups that can come in and play and give you good minutes, and he just has not coached them or developed them well.
I know, Daniel, and I go back and forth because, on the other hand, I want them to make the playoffs. Like you said, a young team, playoff experience. And then you have, I'd like to say, Dum Spiro, Daniel. That's us MUS graduates. We like to insert Latin into our conversation. And that's a language, Daniel, not a people. A lot of people from your area get that confused. It's a language. It's a way us MUS graduates like to demonstrate our superiority both of class and intelligence above normal people. So what it means, Daniel, is while I breathe, I hope. So while we're still there, why don't we go for it? And who knows what can happen.
I agree with you. I think we should go for it and try to make the playoffs. Thank you for your call.
That's all I have for you tonight, Daniel. Thank you for listening to me and, as always, agreeing with everything I say.
Thank you, Ulrich.
Ciao.
Let's go back to the phones again. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Hey, Daniel, this is James. I heard you were talking about the NBA on tonight's show.
Yes,
so I
sir.
just want to know what you thought about what was going on in the NBA right now.
Well, the most intriguing thing is the race for the 8th spot. It's very close, and it's gonna go down to the wire. But also, I'm looking to see who is in the East. What's gonna go down there? The different matchups that could happen, and who could take down the Bucks. I mean, I think the best team that could take down the Bucks is maybe the Heat, because Bam Adebayo has shown that he can stop Giannis. But the Celtics have a lot of options too, and so do the 76ers. So I think there's going to be a lot of noise made in the East. And also another question in the West is who can beat the Lakers? Is it the Clippers? And there's still a lot of things going on that's very confusing in the NBA bubble right now.
All right, well, definitely with the 8th seed, I think that I really think that at this point it's down to the Grizzlies and the Trailblazers. The Suns have been really playing well recently, but I don't think that they have the experience to win a playoff match or a play-in against either the Grizzlies or the Blazers. And I think that the Grizzlies definitely have they definitely want it more just because they've been holding on to this whole season. They're all young. They all have they have plenty of talent. Unfortunately, they're missing some of their best players. And then I think that they just have to be able to find a way to keep Damian Lillard from scoring, 50-plus points, and I think they can take back that spot.
I agree with you, James, and I think the Grizzlies might get it tomorrow since the Bucks are Giannis is suspended for the game, so that could help the Grizzlies if they play a good game. I think they can get a win, and I think if it comes down to if the Grizzlies are the 8th seed, I think they can beat the Blazers. But if the Blazers are the 8th seed, I don't know if the Grizzlies can beat them 2 games in a row, but we'll see.
That's true. And then out east, I think that the Celtics will make the conference finals. I think that we could beat the Raptors for sure. Although I think the Bucks will eventually make it to the finals. Although I think the Celtics can definitely put up a fight and take the series to at least 6, maybe even 7 games.
Yes, I think that the Celtics will give the Bucks a run for their money, but I think the Bucks will eventually they'll make the finals because they just have an overpowered roster on that team. But I think the Celtics are very talented and they have a really good team for the future, and I think that the Celtics could maybe make some noise against the Bucks, but we'll see. Just right now, they don't have anybody to guard Giannis, and that's a problem for mostly every team.
That's true. And then out west, I think the only team, in my opinion, that can really take down the Lakers is the Los Angeles Clippers, and I think that they will. I think the Lakers have shown that, in these seeding games that they're not really ready for this, and other than...
Yeah, well, I think that the Clippers could possibly show the Lakers something, but I think the Lakers right now, the last 2 games they beat the Clippers. I think the Lakers just have too much star power, and LeBron James and Anthony Davis are two top 5 players, and just a great pick and roll team, and just a great roster surrounding LeBron and AD. So I think it's the Lakers. I think they're going to win the West, but I think the Clippers will give a run for their money. But I think in the end, it will be the Lakers who win the West. Thank you for your call, James. Let's go back to the phones again. Hello, you're on Down to the Wire.
Yes. Hi, Daniel. This is Van in Kansas City again, and I'm just calling this week to see if you can give me some updates on Tennessee basketball. I know the recruiting this year was good, and maybe give us some updates on those recruits and whether or not they're planning on having a basketball season, and maybe a little bit of information on some of the recruits they're going after for next year.
Yes, Van. Well, as of right now, last year the Tennessee Volunteers had a top 5 recruiting class, 2 5-stars. First, the point guard / shooting guard, Jaden Springer. He's a 5-star. And then Keon Johnson, a shooting guard, who's also a 5-star. And then you have a 4-star power forward, Corey Walker. He's a very lengthy forward down there in the post. And then you also have a transfer from Oregon who's a 4-star also as a point guard. And then looking forward to this next year's recruiting, as of right now, Tennessee is in the lead for a 5-star point guard, Kennedy Chandler, out of Memphis, who played at Briarcrest last year. But I think as of right now, Tennessee is on Rivals and 24/7 Sports. It says he is 100% Tennessee, and hopefully that is true. And as of right now, all signs are pointing to Tennessee for him. And I think Tennessee will have a basketball season. Right now, they're starting a little bit of shoot-arounds and doing some weightlifting, and I think they'll be ramping up practice pretty soon. And I think they will have a basketball season this year.
Well, thanks. I think I also saw something in the news about Eve Pons deciding to stay in college. Is that right, too?
Yes, that was big news out a couple of days ago. That was huge for the Tennessee Volunteers. Brings back some senior leadership and really just solidifies this team and the starting lineup he can play the 3 or the 4, and that was just a huge decision for the Tennessee Volunteers and for Eve Pons.
How do you think Josiah James will do this second year, his sophomore year? Do you think he'll make a big step forward?
I think he'll take a pretty big step forward. I think Rick Barnes will develop him, and I mean, as of late, he was shooting the 3 ball very well the last couple of games, and I think that he'll have a bounce back year after he only averaged about 7 points per game last year. But I think he will have a bounce back year, and I think he'll take the jump from 7 points maybe to 14 or 15. And I think he's has a bright future at the University of Tennessee.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you for your call, Van. Thanks for watching this episode of Down to the Wire, and I hope you enjoy this episode.